Om Stapakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Stapakaya Dharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishna Te Namaha Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormamritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us bow down to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God Incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from the unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Today's topic, the test of true devotion to God. So, it is very important for those who are seeking God how to make their devotion stable and how a devotee should be unshaken under any circumstances. And he is not shaken by suffering, he is not shaken by anything of this world. So, it is very important to practice devotion very devotedly and in a very determined way. And lot of things happen in course of life. One has to pass through hard experience. One has to pass through lot of crisis, tense situations. But they all come to test the strength of the devotee. If he proves his strength, then immense joy he would get. And he feels very definitely how God's grace is working on him and how he is manifesting through his heart. What we see, some values in the world, which they say constitute a key to success. But these values, which are considered to be important for the success in the empirical plane, they turn into positive disvalues on the spiritual plane. It is very interesting to study this. For example, shrewd calculation and studied cleverness. They are considered hallmarks of success in the mundane life. But these become treacherous pitfalls in spiritual life. Calculation and cleverness will not work in the spiritual life. If you are aspiring to see God, if you are trying to realize the truth, you must be free from this cleverness, this calculation. So, how it is true? When you study the cases, you will understand the importance of practicing real values from the spiritual point of view. The real values which one has to practice have been described by Lord Krishna in chapter 12, how a devotee should format himself, how his devotion should be pure, free from egoism, and one-pointed towards God. Well, the whole chapter deals with that, and Lord Krishna has given the characteristics which are all very important values in the spiritual life. Now, I said earlier, the shrewdness, cleverness, calculation. So, how these turn out to be treacherous, that you can see when you study the case of Duryodhana. He was very shrewd and very calculative, and he was very clever. You can say typical worldly person. If you want to have how the worldly person would look like, study Duryodhana's life, Duryodhana's character. That is the way how the worldly man behaves. Full of egoism, anger, jealousy, vengeance, all these things are to the full degree. Well, the Mahabharata war was imminent. The peace efforts failed. Lord Krishna himself tried to convince Duryodhana that it was really very unfair on his part not to give anything to his cousins Pandavas who deserve. But in whatever way Lord Krishna explained the things, Duryodhana would not accept them because he was so self-centered and so jealous. He didn't want the Pandavas to rise up in any manner. In fact, if you study in the earlier days how Duryodhana was even tried to kill the Pandavas. He wanted to burn them alive. And he even poisoned Bhima. So all these incidents are there is very interesting. It is not fiction, because everyone's life is a story. Everyone sitting here is also, everyone has got a story. After some time, your life, if you have written your life, it runs like a story. How many dangers you have passed through, how many people you have become associated with, all sorts of things happen. Well, so Duryodhana did not want to lose his power. Somehow he has got it by crooked means, by deceiving the Pandavas. But now, once he got hold of the power, he didn't want to part with it. Just like modern politicians do. When they get into power, they never want to give up that power. So, that was the character of Duryodhana. Well, when the peace efforts failed, the war was imminent, it could start any time, and so they were all trying to prepare for the war. Preparation. It is not like simply bombing cities and places, killing all innocent people. Those days, the fighting was not in that fashion. They would gather at a particular battlefield which was designated for that purpose. They should go there and fight there in the battlefield, not bombing the innocent people who are sleeping, who have nothing to do with this politics. Anyway, at least that kind of sense was available, a sense was there, prevalent at that time. So both the groups tried to get support for their cause. So Duryodhana on the side of the Kauravas and Arjun on the side of the Pandavas, they were trying to get support for their causes respectively. So Duryodhana thought, why should he not go and take the help of Lord Krishna? He can approach anybody, and why can't he do? It will be a great asset if he can go and seek his help. But he had his own calculation, as I told you. He was very shrewd and he was very calculative. And so, with all that vengeance inside his heart, he went to Dwarka to meet Lord Krishna. When he came there, Lord Krishna was taking rest. He was lying on the couch. Duryodhana entered the place and he came to know that Krishna was taking rest. He didn't want to wake him up. He just wanted to wait till he wake up. So he had to wait. So what he did was, he sat on a chair on the side where Lord Krishna's head was lying. And he thought, because he considered himself a king and he should maintain his dignity, he was proud of himself. As I said earlier, he was very egoistic, man of full self-importance. And so what he did was, he sat on the side where Lord Krishna was taking rest, And he was waiting. Just after a few minutes, Arjun also came. He also wanted to seek the help of Krishna. So he also came. When he entered the place, he never saw who was there. Simply he went straight towards the feet of Lord Krishna and just sat there on the floor like a humble servant. He was totally free from ego, and he had tremendous love and devotion to Lord Krishna. And this is a crucial test now. As I said, the test of true devotion to God. Now he's undergoing that test, how he fares himself in that test. Both the people are present for the test. One is Duryodhan, the other one was Arjun. Well, after some time, Lord Krishna opened his eyes. He woke up. But when he woke up, what he saw in the front was Arjun. He did not turn right side to see who was sitting there, etc. When he opened the eyes, he saw Arjun. And he said, "Hi, very good, you have come. How are you doing? So, any help you need?" etc. And immediately Duryodhana was sitting by his side. He roared, "What? I am the person who had come first. You must give an interview to me first. Not the person who has come later on." So he was teaching a kind of dharma to Lord Krishna. Well, Krishna said, the point is, when I saw first, whom I saw first, I saw him. When I woke up and when I opened my eyes, Arjun was in the front. He was sitting on the side of my feet. Anyway, he gave the options. He told Duryodhana, and he told Arjun also, well, the option is, there is an army. See, Lord Krishna belongs to Yadava race. It had a very powerful army, infantry, very powerful. And thousands of soldiers were there. They were all extremely good in fighting. So Lord Krishna said, well, here is my army. The whole army. Do you want? He asked Duryodhana. That is one option. Another option is, do you want me, but I don't fight? I just support you, help you in whatever way I can do, but I will not fight. And Arjun said, "Oh Krishna, I don't want your army. I want you. I want you. I don't want anything." And Duryodhana was feeling very happy inside. Oh, what a fool he is. He is refusing the mighty army. Battlefield means you require people to fight. What do you do with one person? He was feeling his shrewdness. He thought he is quite right in asking for the army. So he considered Arjun as a fool. But Arjun never cared, never bothered about that. He was supremely satisfied in that desire to have Lord Krishna on his side. Lord Krishna smiled, and Duryodhana was overjoyed from his point of view. Very good, you give me the army, perfectly I am satisfied. So see this here. he relied upon the army. He did not consider Lord Krishna could do anything as a Lord of the universe. But he relied upon the numerical number. But Arjuna was very definite that Lord Krishna was the supreme Godhead. So what do I need? If I have him on my side, victory is sure to be on my side. So anyway, he wanted Krishna, that's all. He felt immensely peaceful. That happened. And Krishna agreed to be on the side of Arjuna. So, here you see how Duryodhana, because of his worldly nature, could not really enjoy the happiness of Lord Krishna's holy association. But Arjuna, on the other hand, was in an ecstatic state. And because of his egoism, Duryodhana could not succeed in his calculations. And like a vicious circle, he was committing series of blunders, and finally he was succumbed to the situation. There is another point which we have to understand when you come to the subject of devotion. See, when you are devoted to God, you have to be selfless. That is a test of true devotion. You have to be selfless. The moment you tend to become selfish or self-centered, then God is not pleased. Well, whatever you wanted God for whatever purpose, He will fulfill your purpose, that's all right. But you will not get Him, that's all. And here is an example. You know, in the story of Ramayana, a great character, Ravan, he is a devotee, very austere, and he performed severe austerities to please God. But everything was vitiated because of his self-conceit and base calculations of self-interest. So, even though he was a devotee, but he could not be considered as a model devotee, because he was always, his devotion depended upon the fulfillment of his desires. He wanted to enjoy power. He wanted to enjoy more and more the life in the world. So, he wanted God to help him to enjoy the world. See? So, though he is devoted, it was faulty. There is another example, parallel example I will give you. See, we have famous Upanishads in Vedanta. One of the major 10 Upanishads is called Kathopanishad. It's a very good Upanishad. If you have not read, please read that. You have got very good commentaries on that. Excellent Upanishad. It deals with nature of the self. How a young brahmachari, that means a young youthful person whose mind was not dragged to the world, that means who was not dragged to the worldly pleasures, to that extent he had maintained the purity level. His mind was thoroughly pure, and because of that purity he could grasp subtle things very quickly. Just by seeing he would understand what is good and what is bad. That sharpness, alertness he had. So what happened? His father performed a sacrifice, a ritual. What he did was, as a part of the sacrifice, he has to give a gift to the people. He was giving the gift of the old cows, unmilking cows. That means he was distributing things like that, which are old and stale. Nachiketa, the young youthful boy, he was surprised to see this action of his father. He went, "What are you doing? Is it a gift you are giving to the people? What kind of gift you are giving? Old and stale and used ones you are giving? Should you not give the fresh and things which are very good? You are distributing all these things. So, should you not give the best thing? To whom you would gift me?" Like that he began to ask. So the father became angry because he was interrupting him, and he had that ego, and he thought this young boy was teaching him a kind of lesson. So in his angry mood he said, I give you to Yama. Yama means the death god. And the boy did not react because he was so clear in his understanding and in his conviction. He was very clear. So he was not afraid of things. All right, if that is your desire, I am ready to fulfill it as a dutiful son. Very good. So, because of his purity in life, he could go to the abode of God, the death god. And he went there to see the god, but he was not there in the home. He had gone somewhere, and he kept waited for some, probably 3 days. After 3 days, he came back. The name of the death god is called Yama. He came back, and he was surprised to see that young youthful boy shining with purity and glory. And he was waiting at the door, and Yama invited him very hospitably, and he said, look, I have done, because I should have treated you very well, because these 3 days I was not here, so I could not take care of you. Since you have come to my home, you are a guest, venerable guest. So in order to atone for that, you ask 3 boons. Whatever boons you want to ask, you ask. I am prepared to grant that. Now here comes the test. He said, well, what's the purpose of life? You see, what will happen to the soul after death? Where does it go? What's the reality? What is this coming, going, etc.? What is all phenomenal things going on? So I want to know the secret of that. Where does the soul go? What would happen after death? What is its true nature? I want to have the knowledge of the self or the Atman. The indwelling spirit people call, what is that? I want to have that knowledge. How to reach that knowledge? I want to go. Please give me that as one of my boon. And Yama was greatly surprised, because a young youthful boy, what he would ask? He would ask for pleasures in the world. So Yama did not immediately yield to him. He said, no, you are a young boy. This is the time to enjoy the world. People talk like that, here also like that. If you talk spirituality to the people, Swami, let me pass about 40, 50 years. After 50 years, we shall think of starting spiritual life. Like that. So, and Yama is telling, no, you, what do you understand the knowledge of the Atman and this and that? It's a very terse subject, and it's not the time for you to probe that matter. Well, even without your asking, I will give you all the things required for you to enjoy the world. Long life and lot of wealth, lot of people to attend upon you. Anything you want to enjoy, you have it. Uninterrupted, unchallenged pleasures I will grant you. Please don't ask about the knowledge of the Atman. Then the boy said, why are you asking me again and again about the pleasures? Well, I will ask a counter question. You are telling I will have a long life, I can enjoy the world, etc. Is it permanent? Can I enjoy it forever? Can I live forever? Yama said, no, that you can't do. Then why do you want that? A thing which is not stable, which definitely goes one day, why should I aspire for that? What is the need for that kind of thing to enjoy? I don't want. You keep all those things with yourself. Keep everything to yourself. Tavaiva vaha tavanritya gite. The Sanskrit quotation is there. I don't want all that. I want the knowledge of the self. He was so determined, and he did not yield to these temptations. And Yama had to agree to teach him, to initiate him into the knowledge of the Atman. He proved the test. Swami Vivekananda, he has given many discourses in the West, and he has specifically mentioned, and he was very emphatic about Kathopanishad, this boy, the story of Nachiketa, and how it is uplifting. It doesn't talk about your race, it doesn't talk about your country, it doesn't talk about your caste, your religion, your sect. Nothing to do. Truth is very pure in its aspect. All this caste community, that, they are all limitations. Get out of them. Then only you will be free. So, and he passed that test. So he was very pure in his heart. So Yama thought, here is the best student to whom I can impart the knowledge. And because Nachiketa has got that knowledge, we are happy to get that knowledge. Anybody who can study can become like Nachiketa. So, that is the important point that we should remember. Lord Krishna in the chapter 12, he says about the true devotee. He specifically says, if you are to be qualified as a true devotee, you should have these characteristics. First I will quote the Sanskrit verse, then I will explain, I will give the translation of it. Yo nagrishyati na dveshti na shochati na kankshati shubha shubha parityagi bhaktiman yas same priyaha. This is famous verse in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, a true devotee should not rejoice on attaining what he likes. He should not be shaken. That's the meaning. Then, na dveshti, na shochati. Na dveshti means he hates nothing. For example, sometimes you don't want it, but you get certain things. That is, on getting the undesirable, he doesn't become upset. He said, well, it has come. Suppose there is a severe storm. It has come, you have to face it, that's all. What is the use of hating it? By hating, you can't avoid it. So, like that, he gives many qualifications for the true devotee. He who neither rejoices nor hates on getting the undesirable, nor grieves on parting with a beloved thing, nor desires the unattained, and one who has renounced both good and evil, that is merit and demerit, and who is full of devotion is dear to me. What he says is, Lord Krishna says is, a true devotee must maintain his equanimity. Equanimity. One must be calm and steady if he has to be a true devotee. So, the key word in this verse is nakankshati, that is craving. Kankshati means to crave. The hallmark of a true devotee is freedom from craving. Freedom from craving. That is, desirelessness is the gateway to final supreme bliss. What is desirelessness means? Desirelessness means not to desire any sense objects. That leads to desire for God. Desire for God, hunger for God, and hunger for sense pleasures cannot coexist. If your mind is dragged to sense pleasures, you will never find taste in God. Craving for sense objects will not cease unless and until craving for God arises. And craving for God cannot arise unless and until craving for sense objects withers away. It is a classic vicious circle in spirituality. The vicious circle can be broken only by the shower of divine grace on the true seeker. If you are struggling sincerely, God will show you the way. Hence the true devotee's sincere prayer to God for love of Him and Him alone. So you have to pray for that kind of pure love. For a true devotee, devotion is the means as well as the end. There are three famous incidents in the scripture which are well known in our Hindu scriptures. These incidents come in Srimad Bhagavat. It's a famous Puranas, one of the famous Puranas. Puranas are 18. See, the other day I had gone to some interfaith symposium, and they asked the question, what are the basic scriptures of your faith? And I told them, first comes the Vedas. Of course, they were not written texts. They were all experiences of the illumined souls, the sages who meditated in the forest for a long period of time, got illumination, and whatever they got, that they taught to the disciples, and the disciples in turn taught them to their disciples. Like that, generations, these ideas were being carried on. Afterwards, of course, the printing technology came. They were all printed now. Now it is available in printed form. So it is not the text written by a single person. It is a collection of all the rishis, many rishis. So 4 Vedas. These Vedas have got broad section. One is ritualistic portion, the other one is the knowledge portion. So Vedanta means the last section. Anta means last section. The last section of the Vedas. That means it leads to knowledge. Knowledge is the thing that you should aspire for. Whatever the rituals you are doing, it's all giving result which you can enjoy for a while, and then again you have to pass through same difficulties, and you will not be able to solve the life's problem. What is the purpose of life? You just simply to come and go. Come and go and enjoy and go, enjoy and go. Is it all? So so here comes, no, that's not the way. The knowledge, you have to aspire for the knowledge. So Vedanta means knowledge of the self. Self means Atman, not the mind. Capital S, self. So this Vedanta deals with Upanishads. Every Veda, 4 Vedas are there, every Veda has got Upanishads. There are hundreds of Upanishads are there. Every Upanishad deals with a particular idea, a very good idea about the self. Of them, the major Upanishads are 10. And then come the Bhagavad Gita. So the essence of the Veda is Vedanta. The essence of the Vedanta is Bhagavad Gita. That is, Bhagavad Gita is a quintessence of the Hindu scriptures. Everything what is to be said is given in Bhagavad Gita. And then comes Puranas. Puranas, 18 Puranas are there, and then 18 Upapuranas are there, total 36. These Puranas, they deal with the life stories of the people lived in different periods of time. And it deals with all sorts of stories. But then every story has got a wonderful moral lesson, and how a person was undergoing severe difficulties, circumstances, how a person is asked to worship a particular form of God, propitiate the God, get the grace of God, that difficulty will be overcome. So what they were doing in that process was, somehow they want to bring the people towards God. Even if necessary, by granting what you want. All right, what you want? I want this toy. Take that toy. Enjoy. So, if you want anything, pray to God. Instead of praying to all sorts of people, pray to God Himself. He can give anything. The idea was, by constantly worshipping God, for whatever selfish purpose it may be, slowly you are drawn towards Him. And slowly you are drawn. And once your desires are fulfilled by God, then you feel, oh, God is so graceful and He's so concerned about me. How nice it is to be with God. Like that you think. And you try to come more towards God. Anyway, that was the idea. And moreover, to see people live a proper life. Life based on morals. Life based on ethical values. Life based on spiritual values. If a person lives according to these values, he can not only be happy himself, he can also be a source of happiness to all the people around him. Suppose a saint is there in a particular place. The whole atmosphere is full of tranquility, good vibrations are there. See, there was, probably I've heard his name, Ramana Maharshi in South India, and Tirunnamalai, a very great saint, lived in our modern times, who had realized that Advaitic knowledge, words, mostly he would be silent. One of the foreigners, Paul Brenton, in fact he himself has written on Ramana Maharshi. Paul Brenton, a very great scholar of the time, he went to meet Ramana Maharshi very recently, maybe during 40s, 1940 or something like that. And before he went, he had tremendous doubts in his mind. He had lot of questions, just like kids have questions. Like that, he had tremendous questions. And he wanted to see whether that person could answer at least some of the questions which were bothering him. So with that idea, he went to meet him, a foreigner. But Ramana Maharshi, I don't know whether he could speak English, that I don't know, probably not. But anyway, he went to see him. But what happened was, when he went there, a few people were sitting around him, and Ramana Maharshi was sitting in a very, very informal, relaxed way, extremely relaxed way, position, posture. And he came, and when Paul Brenton came in front of him, Swamiji looked at him with a graceful look. In the look itself there was tremendous love and affection, and teaching through that look, not talking, simply by look he taught him. And he was silent, and this Paul Brenton, he sat there for a while, maybe 1 hour or so, 1 hour sitting there in front of him. The idea of raising the question never occurred to him. And after that 1 hour, he just got up and went out, supremely satisfied. And some of the people asked him, what happened to your questions? Because you said you had to ask the Swami so many questions here. Oh, when I sat in front of him, the mood of asking questions didn't come to me. I was so peaceful in myself. All my doubts, all my botherations, all my fussy things in the mind, they're all simply washed away. I don't know how they are washed away. I felt remarkably fresh. So what is the need to ask any question? Like that he went back, and he has written nicely Ramana Maharshi's teachings. So, Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, these are the Puranas. So what I am telling is, these Puranas, they deal with the life story. So that don't simply think whatever you can do, you can go on without any reaction. Anything you do in this world, you have to pay it back. Good, good, bad, bad. Anything that you do, it comes back to you. 100-fold, 1,000-fold. So one has to be very careful. Even if you think a bad thought in your mind, that also has got reaction. It disturbs your mind, it spoils your mind. It creates an impression. At some point of time, again, because of that impression, again the bad thought will come. It's a chain action. In the same way, good thoughts also. So, one has to be very careful and one has to organize his thinking and doing things. So that is the purpose of this Puranas, dealing with the life stories, and they give all particulars, the name of the person, what he did and how he was responsible, why he is suffering, how to overcome suffering, what he should do, how he should perform worship. Worship also simply not simply whatever way you can do, you can do. No, you have to do in a certain way. That means if you have to do worship, you have to follow certain discipline. At least for 15 days you have to live on a proper diet, and you have to be very strict about your sleeping and other things. And they prescribe very meticulously all those things to be done. So in a way they are teaching you how to become disciplined. So that is the purpose of these things, giving these Puranas. And there are very nice incidents how the devotees are so overwhelmed by their devotion, and how they are so self-effacing in their disposition, so mature in their spiritual outlook, and so unconventional in their boon seeking. They stand as shining examples of true devotion. So this special class of devotees, they don't pray to God for power or pelf. They don't pray for even deathlessness. Their prayers are unique, and in a way these prayers mirror their spiritual shrewdness in all its acuteness. And you know the story of Prahlad, a very famous story, how he was devoted to Lord Vishnu from the childhood. So whatever you instill in the child, that will stay. That's why we always keep telling, give good training to the children. Take care of the children. I don't know how many people do really understand that. So the parents should understand first how to take utmost care of the children. Not simply giving the reason, I am also going to a job, my wife also goes to a job, I can't take care of my child, the child will have to be in babysitting. This won't help. The result also will be like that. You have to be ready for the result, whatever the result that comes. In spite of it, if the child behaves well, you are lucky. Anyway, but here Prahlad, how he became devoted, so much devoted, all the time his mind was just in God. There is a reason in that. See, Hiranyakashipu, the king of that time, he went to do some austerities to some forest, and his wife was pregnant. And that was the time Narad, a famous saint who is well in devotion. In fact, Narada Bhakti Sutra, it's a very good text. If you are following the path of devotion, you should read that text. How to follow, how to practice it. He came because Hiranyakashipu was a terrible person. He was very cruel and brutal, and he would not care for anybody. Just like Duryodhana. Duryodhana 100 times equals 1 Hiranyakashipu. Anyway, and Narad came, and he began to talk to Hiranyakashipu's wife. Well, you are here, your husband is doing austerities in the forest. It is good if you think good ideas so that it will help you to sustain your life. And it is, and you will get peace of mind also. So like that he introduced himself and began to teach her about the glories of God and about the spiritual import of God's nature. His idea was, he wanted to teach those ideas to the child inside the womb. The child was already there. And when he was teaching, he is pointing out to the child. And the child is receiving all this knowledge. Whatever Narad has said, everything is absorbing. In fact, it was even responding from the womb. And that Narad could hear. Others could not hear. Narad could hear that. That was his purpose. And when the baby was born, he was full of devotion to God. And he was so devoted, he didn't want anything. He was happy in thinking about God. And he was so definite that God is present everywhere. That's the reality. Even the world may go, world may dissolve at some point of time because of the age of the world, as our bodies also dissolve. World also has to take rest. It's not simply human beings taking rest. The creation also needs rest. It takes rest, it does take. So, even then, God is present. Whether the universe exists or not, God is present. He is always present. Omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. That is the nature of God. But his father was dead opposed. He was dead opposing the God whom Prahlad was worshipping. He became so angry, and he could not change the mind of Prahlad, because Prahlad got these ideas when he was in the womb itself, so his mind has been well formatted, it has become very strong. Nobody could shake, and father became very angry. Then one day he became so upset, he said, well, and he tried to torture him in so many ways, but he overcame all those tortures because his love was so great. He was saved every time he was in the torture, he was saved by God. Anyway, that is the test of his true devotion. It was so pure, God himself had to come and save him. Well, finally, one day he called him, come here. You are telling God is present everywhere? If your God is present in this pillar, let him come and save your life. Let me see. I will cut your throat right now. He jumped from the throne with a sword in his hand, rising to cut off his head. He came so fast. But as I said, Prahlad was a great devotee of the supreme grade. Immediately the pillar, it splitted up. It splitted. And from there emerged a form, a divine form, a special form to deal with this Rakshas, this demon. Finally, of course, the demon was killed. Well, the story goes. The point is how, if God were not present everywhere, he could not come through that pillar. Because he was present everywhere, he manifested there. He manifested because of the perfect love cherished by Prahlad. So that is the story we get. And there is another story which is also very important, and how nicely he proved the test. His name also very famous. If you have not read, you read these stories. They are very good. They are available in our bookstore. This is the story of Ranti Deva. He was very great. He was compassionate and he was selfless. And he didn't fear for anything. He did not fear even death. That means he was able to face any risk. Any risk. So he was very definite about his direction, and he showed it in his life how he could overcome the crisis. That is, at one point of time, there was no food in the home. There was terrible famine, and everybody was starving. The story, there's a detailed story, you can read that. I am touching only the points. So the gods, they came in human form, disguised as guests, just to test Rantideva's spiritual quality. They came there and asked for the food. And they were about to sit and take the whatever little food they had. About 4 or 5 people were there. And they parted with the food. All right, your need is more than our need. Take it. Like that, they offered the food to them. And even Rantideva also, finally, he was prepared to die if that could save the life of that person who was asking for the food, because they were also starving. Then the gods were immensely pleased by his tremendous compassion, and so they revealed themselves to him, and they told him to ask for anything he wants. They even offered him occult powers. See, people are enamored by occult powers. They said, all right, you can have Ashtasiddhi. We are prepared to give you because you have proved your quality. But he said, no, I don't want any of them. What he desired was to abide within all beings and undergo the sufferings that accrue to them. Abidance within all beings is nothing but unitive knowledge, vision and experience. It's a state of being anchored in non-dual consciousness, of reveling in the inexpressible ecstasy of the spiritual unity of existence. A non-dual seer's solicitude and compassion embrace the entire gamut of existence, and even as he shares the joys and sorrows of the entire existence through this keen sense of spiritual identity, an overpowering tide of non-dual spiritual ecstasy floods his entire being and sweeps away all pain and misery, thus bathing him in unalloyed spiritual bliss. So, Rantideva prays for nothing less than the peak of spiritual experience, namely unitive awareness. The next story that is referred is Kunti Devi, a very famous character, the mother of the Pandavas. how she was not afraid of sufferings. She prayed for repeated doses of suffering. Is it not a great wonder? She is asking for suffering. She is not asking for happiness. She said, give me more suffering. So, it would seem as at once she seems to be an expert psychologist. She fully knows the mind and its mysterious workings. She is fully aware of the mind's propensity to lose itself in the ordure of sense pleasures and its tendency to forget God, the source of all experience. So, she doesn't dread trials and tribulations, but welcomes them for their capacity to chasten her unregenerate mind and turn it Godward. She said, it is because of suffering, she is always remembering God. She was always remembering Lord Krishna. Oh Krishna, you are always in my heart, because every suffering is bringing me close to you. So, she is not daunted by the slings and arrows of adversity. So she prays for the sufferings, and so that her mind should be always in God. So the first of the Trinity, Prahlada, prays for desirelessness, a synonym for anchorage in spirit. The second, Rantideva, prays for abidance in all, again a synonym for anchorage in non-dual spirit. The third, Kunti Devi, prays for repeated dose of suffering as a means for remembrance of the Lord. Remembrance of the Lord is nothing but self-awareness in Vedantic parlance. Thus, by praying for repeated doses of suffering, Kunti in effect prays for anchorage in spirit. The pith and substance of the prayers of these three devotees is identical, namely anchorage and absorption in self-knowledge, Atmanubhuti. So, that's the way. So everyone has to pass through these tests to have the final vision of God. Then you will be really happy and happy forever. Thank you very much. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. May the Divine Spirit protect us, guide us, give us strength and right understanding. May we not hate one another. May love and harmony be with us all. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. May the Divine Lord protect us. May He nourish us. May we work in harmony with great vigor. May our study be illuminating and fruitful. May we not hate each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.